Well, to start, I'd like to thank the chair for explaining appeal procedures today. I'd also like to thank all of the committee members for being present. I have to say at the outset, I'm quite surprised that I'm here. I might even go as far to say a little hurt by it because I've gone to great effort to try and be fair in this decision. I don't think the sanction Jeff received is unfair in any respect. I'm confident that the way this case was treated and this decision was given is fair substantively, procedurally, and relationally in terms of how Jeff and I interacted throughout the case. What I mean by that is substantively fair because I have the authority as Associate Dean of the Faculty of Widget Engineering and Creative Humanities Sciences to make decisions in Code of Student Behavior cases. This decision was based on pertinent information. The instructor for Jeff's course provided very clear evidence of plagiarism here, quite convincing to me at the outset. The sanction was not in any way oppressive or excessive. In fact, it's exactly the same sanction that I gave in every first offense for a Code of Student Behavior case this term. And this term we've had quite a few cases. I did give more severe sanctions for senior students and more severe sanctions also for second and third offenses. But for all first offenses, I gave the same sanction Jeff received here. No credit for the course, notation of 8 on the transcript that stays on for 2 years, and conduct probation for the duration of Jeff's studies. So an NC 8 was the sanction. I believe this was appropriate, as I said, because it's no different from what anyone else received for similar offenses. Jeff was notified of the accusations against him in writing. He was given an opportunity to provide his perspective. Jeff actually wrote a letter to me. It's not all students do, but he wrote a letter and took responsibility early in the letter for the incident. To me, that was, of course, convincing evidence. I admit that I skimmed through the rest of the letter when I saw the admission, but that fact was something that stood out for me. We nonetheless met, and I gave Jeff the opportunity to explain his perspective again in person. He attended the meeting with an ombuds person. I believe he spent some time with an ombuds advisor before that to understand policy procedure for Code of Student Behavior. In the meeting, Jeff again apologized, took responsibility, so I didn't think there was any question of his role in this incident. We talked about the Code of Student Behavior. We talked about typical sanctions and expectations of students here in the faculty and at the University of Alberta. I made I think, a fairly quick decision in this case and provided my response in writing within less than 5 business days. So it was even a faster notification procedurally than many students receive in similar cases. Jeff was notified of his right to appeal, so that procedural obligation was met. I just didn't expect to see the appeal. Relationally, I think Jeff and I had a very respectful professional interaction. There was no raising of voices. His confidentiality was, of course, respected. I believe that I was approachable in this case from the beginning when I contacted him in writing after I received the accusation. I was forthright about the institution and faculty's expectations and that sanctions are necessary in these cases. Oh, looking back on it, there was nothing unfair about this decision that in my mind would have merited an appeal. It was procedurally, substantively, and relationally fair, and I stand by it.
Thank you, Dr. Mannerheim. I appreciate all of those comments, and I want to thank all the committee members and the chair for being present here today and allowing me to speak my case as well. And I really appreciate all of that, and I appreciate all of the procedural information that has been provided thus far as well. I wanted to start off by saying that I am very remorseful of the actions that I was forced to take, and I'll outline a little bit about why I'm appealing and what sort of pushed me to take the actions that I did. I first wanted to say that I appreciate the efforts that the Associate Dean has taken to treat me as fairly as he possibly could. And as he said, he was very approachable, professional, and conducted himself without bias. There were no procedural problems either. I was informed of all of my rights and responsibilities in a timely and appropriate manner, and I'm very appreciative of all of these efforts, and they mean a lot to me. However, I'm still appealing the severity of sanction because I find this decision to be unfair equitably rather than procedurally, substantively, or relationally. And I'll outline why I feel this way. So the first thing I wanted to outline is my specific circumstances that I'm living under. I'm an international student at the University of Alberta. I come from a very meager background. My family has taken an immense risk and immense amount of loan to both personal and government to send me to school here. And so any delay not only costs me time, but it costs me extra finances to pay back those loans. And on top of that, this particular course is a degree requirement for me. So that would mean that at any point that I take this course, it would potentially delay another course for me. So I would have to pay the fees for this course again. So there's an extra course that I'm having to take, which quite frankly, I don't have the resources for, and it's pushing my already limited resources to the limit. Another thing that I would have to consider is the fact that if at a later date that I do return to Canada, it would be travel fees and it would be extra living arrangement fees that I would have to take on that are, and these things are really just not being considered at all in this decision. Another thing I wanted to point out is that I'm a very hardworking student, and this is my first offense, and I take my academic integrity and plagiarism and cheating as very, very seriously. And I believe I was forced into violating this code because of the situation created by the COVID-19 pandemic. Because of the sudden shift in online learning and the recall to my home nation, I was in a situation where I had moved back, but I don't have consistent access to internet and or to other resources that I need to succeed in my courses and in my program. On top of all of this, I am still attempting to work in order to mitigate the financial strain that my family and I are facing. And all of these factors, I believe, are, again, not being considered in this decision. And this is why I believe that this decision is equitably unfair. And all of these factors also contributed to my violation of the Code of Student Behavior in this particular case. And so this is why I'm appealing the severity of sanction rather than the decision itself, because I believe that the disciplinary failing grade is unequitably is unequitable to my particular case, and any variation from this particular sanction would be far more equitable and far more reasonable, far more reasonable a consequence. And again, I want to thank Dr. Mannerheim for all of his considerations so far, and that's all I really have to say at this time.
You know, I have to admit, Jeff raised some issues today that I hadn't thought of previously. I was confident coming into this appeal that my decision had been substantively, procedurally, and relationally fair. I still believe it was fair on those points, but I hadn't really given much thought to the equity issues here. And I think what Jeff has outlined is that sameness is not fairness. And I think leaving this appeal going forward for other cases and how I conduct myself as a decision maker needs to think more about how particular sanctions can in fact impact students differently with unanticipated consequences that really go beyond what the faculty intends. The idea is never to make it impossible for a student to continue their studies on a first offense or to prevent them from continuing in a reasonable time frame. I believed by giving the same sanction in all first offenses that I was being fair. But I think I see now that I should have given more attention to Jeff's letter, where he probably outlined some of these things and asked the right questions when we met, so that I would have had a better understanding of his broader circumstances. So this appeal and our discussion today has really given me a lot to think about, and I thank Jeff for that. I have nothing more to add.
Thank you, Dr. Mannerheim, for all of those comments and all of your considerations so far. And I defer to the committee as well. I don't have much more to add.
Thank you.